Hello, and welcome to Tackling the Text-Dependent Analysis Walkthrough for parents. So in fourth grade on the PSSA, they do have to write a TDA, also known as the Text-Dependent Analysis. And this is a quick overview for some parents who might want to know more or who might want to continue working with their children throughout the school year and over the summer. So here we go. First of all, anatomy of the TDA. So first of all, there's a piece of text that the children are then asked to analyze, text-dependent analysis. There's evidence. Then we talk a lot about breaking down the prompt. There's a prompt that children really have to be able to figure out what are the two skills they're being asked to analyze. And then they have to be able to make an inference. An inference is something that's not explicitly written in the text. So sometimes, for example, the author will say, Sarah's palms were sweaty and her stomach hurt. And we talk about, well, what does that mean? That means maybe she was nervous. Now, the author never said she was nervous, but us making that inference or jumping to that conclusion because of the clues that are presented in the text. And that's really what students have to be able to do to be successful at a TDA. And then there's also basic writing organization. Be able to organize your writing into paragraphs, transition words, beginning, middle, end, all of those types of things. So first of all, I want to share with you, this is a link to the PA Department of Ed resources for a TDA. And so on this link, you can see there's a Toolkit Center for Assessment. There's all sorts of stuff that you may want to browse over. Keep in mind that the TDA is started in third grade, sort of. Not really. In third grade, they start reading the text and pulling evidence from the text. But that analysis piece is not in the third grade curriculum or in the third grade PSSA. Fourth grade is where they have to analyze the text. And then they'll see it again in fifth grade, sixth grade, and so on, all the way up into college when students are asked to analyze text. So you can see there's all sorts of, there's student responses here, there's lessons, things you could browse on your own there. And that is linked to this. Then we have a kid-friendly scoring rubric. So this is the language that is on the rubric for the PSSA, broken down into kid-friendly terms. And sometimes I have students score their own writing using this rubric. So as you can see, these pictures of the child on the bicycle. A 1 means the child is just getting started with the task of riding a TDA or riding a bicycle, right? They still have a tricycle. You can see the different parts of these that meet that score. And then we have a 2. And a 2 is usually a 1 and a 2 is where a third grader or a fourth grader would come at the beginning of the year. We start off the year with the 2. You can see there's weak organization, some transition words. Transition words are, for example, first, then, next, finally, in conclusion. Those are transition words. Analysis is unclear, but there is an effort to explain why the evidence matters. There's definitely text evidence. Academic language. Notice here that errors in punctuation is not a make or break for a score on the TDA. Okay, so this is a child riding a bicycle with training wheels. The goal for fourth grade is to end the year with a 3. You can see this child is just riding a bike, no training wheels. That's the goal. Now, not all students will be ready to meet that goal by the end of the year, but that's the goal. And then a 4, you can see this child's popping a wheelie. That's above and beyond, exceptional, not necessarily expectation in third grade. And you can read through this rubric on your own as well. This analysis piece, though, you can see is clear, explains why the evidence matters. That's the big jump from 2 to 3. Some analysis in 2, no analysis in 1. You can see there's transition words here, transition words here, evidence in all of them, well, very little in 1. But that's the jump from a 2 to a 3 and from a 3 to a 4. Thorough analysis, or analysis is clear, or analysis is unclear, but it's there. So this is really the text-dependent analysis rubric that is used for the PSSA that has been taken and changed into more kid-friendly language. Okay, let me get out of this. Okay, and then we practice scoring a TDA. So, for example, let's look at this, the poetry quilt, which you can see here is linked. If you'd like to read that, you could. Here's the prompt. The story of the poetry quilt is about a Puritan girl who writes poetry. Write an essay analyzing how the events in the text reveal a change in Charity's viewpoint. There's your 2 skills. And that, being able to read through the prompt and pick out the 2 skills, is rather tricky for students to do in 4th grade. So figuring out, we always say, write an essay analyzing, it always says that, how the events in the text, so events, reveal a change in Charity's viewpoint. So character's point of view are the 2 skills here. Use evidence from the text to support your response. So the way we teach them to write this is the first paragraph is really restating the prompt and answering the question. You can see here I restated the prompt. The evidence in the text reveal a change in Charity's viewpoint. Charity's sister, here's where I answer. I tell you what her viewpoint is. Charity's sister Prudence and Mistress Bradfoot both cause changes in the way Charity thinks about poetry. And this could be better to say that Charity's viewpoint of poetry goes from negative to a positive. That could make a jump from a 3 to a 4, right? First, transition word. Charity's older sister Prudence told Charity that poetry was for babies. There's my text evidence. This shows that. Here's where I'm going to analyze for you. And this is where I'm making that inference, and I'm showing you why the author had that event in there. This shows that this made her feel sad and embarrassed. And here's my analysis. This reminds me of when my friend said that stuffed animals are for little kids. This didn't only make me feel embarrassed, but also a little sad. This connects to the prompt because this event shows how Charity's point of view changed from happy about her poetry to starting to believe that poetry is for babies. Now, you can see here that I've made some errors, and I did that intentionally for when students score this to show that you can have errors in spelling and some errors in grammar, and you can still get a good score on this because, again, what they're really scoring is your analysis, not necessarily your spelling. Now, when it comes to spelling, students do need to be able to spell 4th grade words correctly. So a big push on that is those homophones. There, to, your, things like that are 4th grade words that students should be spelling correctly, especially on this TDA. Next, transition word. Charity meets Mistress Bradfoot when she is returning the blanket, and Charity is shocked to find out that Mistress Bradfoot also writes poetry when the author writes, I am not a baby and I write poems. I've even published a book. There's my evidence. Sometimes what I do too is I have students go through and highlight their evidence in one color and their analysis in a second highlighter color. I always say that your analysis should be double your evidence. So if you have 1 line of evidence, you should have 2 lines of analysis, because really that analysis is what they're scoring you on. Pulling evidence from the text is the simpler task in this TDA, but telling someone why you picked that evidence and how that evidence helps to answer the prompt, that's the big meat of this TDA, and that's what's really important. So most of your writing should be that analysis piece. So here I wrote, this matters because, or one of the ways I tell students to start their analysis is, this shows, okay, this matters because Charity realizes that her sister was wrong and poetry is not only for babies. And here's my analysis. This is where I'm connecting. This reminds me when a different friend told me that he played with stuffed animals too, and that made me feel more comfortable, just like Charity after talking to Mistress Bradfoot. See how I made that connection? This connects to the prompt because Charity's interaction with Mistress Bradfoot causes a change in Charity's point of view. Now Charity is proud of her writing and wants to write more poems. All of this piece right here is my analysis. One of the ways to make analysis is to make a connection to the text. So there are 3 ways you can connect with text. There is a text-to-text connection. You can say, this reminds me of another story that I read where the character did XYZ. That's a text-to-text connection. You can make a text-to-self connection. This reminds me of a time just like I did in this piece of writing. Then you can make a text-to-world connection. So a common one I hear a lot in 4th grade is, this reminds me of Dr. Martin Luther King and the way he created change in a peaceful way. Okay, so text to text, text to self, text to world are 3 ways that students can connect. And I encourage them to do that in their writing. I also encourage them, I say this is called the boomerang effect. So you threw out the text evidence, you brought it back around with the analysis and why this matters, and now really bring it home with connecting it back up to your answer, which was right here. So here's my answer to that, what they wanted me to analyze. Here's the answer. Notice that my boomerang brings it back to that when I say, This connects to the prompt because Charity's interaction with Mistress Bradfoot causes a change in Charity's point of view. See, I talk about the change in her point of view. Now Charity is proud. So we talk about making a connection and boomerang effect. Put it out there and bring it back to that, your first paragraph. And then they do need to wrap it up. Students sometimes get caught up, and I restated the prompt, I answered the prompt, I gave you 2 pieces of evidence, and I really connected with the text. I gave you that analysis, I'm done. Well, you still have to have good writing organization, and that is we need a wrap-up paragraph. In conclusion, Charity's interactions with her sister and Mistress Bradfoot caused a change in Charity's point of view. At first, she thought she would no longer write poems, and at the end, she is proud of her ideas. Notice that paragraph, and this is what I tell students, really is a restating of your prompt, kind of wrapping up all of your ideas and what you wrote about. So in this document, this is a document I give to students. I have them look at this. So this one would be a 3 or a 4, in my opinion. This one would be a 2 or a 3. And then we have some other ones down here that students can look at and read. This would be a 1 or a 0, right? Probably a 1. So anyway, this is a tool that you can use. Also on this website, you can see that there are TDAs that have been released that have been scored through the PSSA scoring rubric, that you can see what those scores were as well. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope that you maybe have a better idea of ways that you can work with your child, ways you can encourage them to make their writing better. And as always, if you have questions, you know how to get a hold of me. Thanks so much. Happy learning, friends.